What's up, chat? It's me. I'm here for a very impromptu stream today. So originally, I had scheduled words. Ugh. I'm gonna try that again, because I can. See ya. Wow, it's like magic. All right, chat. Take two. Here we go again. It's a very impromptu stream from me today. Decided, usually I'm putting Monday as like a TBD at the moment. Like sometimes I will, sometimes I won't, just because of the amount of work I've got going on. It's easier for me to maintain like the solid, like, you know, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at this point in time, and then move on afterwards. But yeah, so today I'm coming on again. I've decided, sod it, I want to make more Overwatch League content again. So instead of me just limiting myself to Thursday, if I'm doing an extra stream, I might as well make it about the thing that I'm absolutely gushing over at the moment. So today, I said this on Thursday, I'm going to say it again today. This is probably going to be a bit more of a YouTubey style again, so if I don't respond to everyone in chat too much, I do apologize. That's just the way the cookie crumbles at this current point in time. But I will talk to everyone before and after the stream and stuff like that, so obviously keep an eye on me afterwards. This should be a shorter one, but on Thursday, I said to everyone that I wanted to have a look at the San Francisco Shock versus the O2 Blast show match that happened. And now that I'm not ill, I might be able to have a little bit of a better job on this one. So I've been sat here, I've been having a hella good time, like going over this game and seeing what it was all about. And there's some really, really interesting stuff. For anybody that didn't see it, I made a video on the leaked 5v5 workshop scrim between Boston Uprising and Florida Mayhem. I'm going to be drawing quite a lot from that analysis in this video, so if you haven't seen that yet, maybe pop back and go and take a look. There were a lot of concepts I went over in that and took a good old look at and identified in this 5v5 stuff. So today, with this game in particular, I want to be having a look again about how 5v5 is making players interact with the space a lot more, with their surroundings a lot more. Maybe have a little bit of a prediction table going on which heroes are coming out on top of these reworks and which heroes maybe not so much, which of them are suffering a little bit due to that lack of an extra tank. There's quite a lot to go through in that respect. Obviously, this is still the workshop build. When this when this show match came out, it was before the Overwatch 2 beta was announced. It was also before, you know, there were the open signups. It was before the dev Q&A. So this is still on that workshop mode that I think Gunba created, that was still being used. It's relatively accurate, but obviously, well, from the reports and the slight leaks that we've had at the moment from the Overwatch 2 alpha, which is obviously NDA at the current point in time, we're finding out that some of these heroes are absolutely cracked, and I will be referencing that as well. So, without further ado, I'm jumping right into this. Let's take a good old-fashioned look at this then. No sound again, because I like to talk over the top of this quite a lot. Okay, let me just run down these comps for everyone very, very quickly. And actually, I stole myself a little tool for this. Where are you? There you are. Good. Look at this. Am I not going to be able to get that up when I'm in full screen? Oh, that's sad. Oh, that's very sad. Can I not? Literally, chat, I've only just started using this, so Gib, is there not a way to do this? I can X out of it. Can I not have it? Oh, that's pretty sad. What if I boot it up on a different screen? That might work. Nope, no it doesn't. Okay, don't worry about it. I'm not going to use it then. I might try in different points, but we'll see how we go. Okay, right. So, you can all see my mouse, so that's all that matters. So, right. For a little bit of backstory into these two teams, San Francisco Shock, obviously two-time champions, didn't win this year. Looked pretty convincing though, mind you, but they were just a little bit lacking to hang with the top teams. O2 Blast have been incredibly dominant in contenders this season, as I have been alluding to over on the Overwatch League 2022 countdown series I've been doing, where I'm looking at all the teams. They have been super mega, ultra mega strong this season. They have essentially been dominant in Korean contenders. And this is happening because there is now a partnership that I believe is developed between O2 and San Francisco. They're kind of like counterparts to one another in their respective regions. And the San Francisco Shock basically binned off most of their roster. Again, I will go into that later in the week. I believe I'm doing San Francisco this week, so stay tuned for that. And they picked up 3 of the O2 Blast players that were on that contenders winning roster, which was Proper, Kilo, and Finn. Obviously, you can see that they've kept Super and Violet. I'm not going to go into too much detail. I will be doing this later in the week, but these guys, Proper especially, is the second coming of Christ, allegedly. This guy is absolutely cracked, and you're going to see why here. On the other side, this is basically kind of like a new look O2 Blast, seeing as most of the players were picked up and promoted to the Overwatch League. But one name in particular that stands out is Heesang. Heesang was playing on, I think he was playing on Talon this season, and has now jumped across to O2 Blast and was playing against these guys all season long. And he is a surefire pickup for the league next season. I'm really excited to see what Heesang does. He looks incredible. But we'll see what happens next year. But either way, that's what we're looking at coming into this game. These are 2 very, very strong Tracer players. I think Heesang is absolutely cracked, and now that I've been watching so many VODs of Proper, this guy might just be the real deal. You know, maybe this is Prophet's successor. I don't know, but we'll find out. Anyway, going into this game, you can see that much like that we saw in the Florida Mayhem versus the Boston Uprising scrim, here's that Brigitte again, and here's the Zenyatta or the Ana. This Brigitte, in my opinion, is becoming quite a solid pick, remaining quite strong. There's that D.Va again, D.Va remaining strong, able to take high ground, able to aggress and disengage very, very quickly, which I'll touch on later. The Tracer, which is almost undroppable at this point in time, in my opinion, for 5v5, and you'll see why in a second. And then Probe deciding flexing over onto the Widowmaker. That's good, that's bad. We'll discuss that in a little bit. On the side of San Francisco, relatively similar, except that they've got Finn on the Ana. Okay, they've got Super on a Zarya pick instead, which is going to be very, very interesting. And then Kilo's flexing over to the Reaper. Interesting. All right. So let's watch and see how these first couple of fights basically break out. But what you're going to see a lot here is you're going to see a lot of gameplay of Proper just being a devil in the backline for O2. So Proper already comes up onto that high ground. He forces Max off the high ground. You can see that Heesang's trying to track him down. They want that Tracer out the way, right? Kilo dies here. Heesang gets traded out, and this is where my first big point comes in. So we'll wait for them to go to an overhead angle. So one thing I've noticed, and you'll see this throughout this game a relative amount, right? But these teams, because you don't really necessarily have too much of a stronger dive strategy without these 2 tanks, you are reliant heavily on your Tracer working their way into the backline and getting a pick off on one of the supports. That's why Brigitte is absolutely fundamental to both of these teams, because they are a natural deterrent to Tracers. You got the whip shot that just debunks them, it spaces them out if you can hit it. Obviously, in days gone by, the shield bash was a stun, but even now it's still a good disruptive tool, and you can't really get too close to Brig without them putting in a lot of damage, and you can't just one-bang them with a clip of Tracer because that shield is very disruptive. So they make for an excellent pairing, as we already know, with your flex supports like your Zenyatas and your Anas of this world. Now, Heesang dying here, you may be thinking, okay, he can't get into the backline of San Francisco, but, you know, O2 are defending. This is the problem. With Heesang being unable to put pressure on Finn and Violet, all of that healing and all of those resources are now on the front line of Super, helping Super push forward onto this point. Super there is just bursting down Max. Proper's following up, and already he's left the front line. No tank on the front line means that Shock are just buying space onto this point. They are just forcing their way through here. And Max doesn't have a lot of healing output either, because O2 haven't taken the Ana. So Max goes in, he tries to get like a pincer sort of movement here. He gets burst down pretty quickly and he's gone. Okay, Aiden trades Violet, but the damage is already done at this point. There's a nano onto Super, and he's just going to clean up the support line. And that Shock through. And that's down to the fact that there was no, pressure on the backline. Okay, this was a sick stick from Heesang. I was really impressed. But at the same time, he gets no value out of it. The point's already flipped. You're better off just saving it for your next team fight, surely. But it's good mechanics from the kid, honestly. I'm sure that Heesang's had a lot of duels with Finn over the last year. Okay, that's the first team fight. That's how that one's looking. And now you can see that much like normal, both these teams are vying for possession of the high ground. Just gonna have a quick read of my notes here. Probe is still on this Widowmaker. You can see that Max has flipped over to the Zarya. Now, I think that's fine. I think in Overwatch 2, what you're going to be seeing quite a lot of maybe is these counter comps. Not counter comps, sorry, mirror comps. I expect to see quite a lot of mirror comps because I think that the fundamentals of Overwatch 2 are still going to be being baked into the game as we're moving forward with the season. So Max mirroring Super here makes perfect sense. I mean, also it is technically just like a show scrim, so that's fine. But Probe on this Widowmaker is a very interesting choice. Now you can see from the shot, Probe is somewhere back here right now. And that's usually excellent positioning for a Widowmaker. But what's happening is he's got very, very narrow sight lines here, of which he can actually operate and pump damage in, and Shock are working through this narrow choke point. Furthermore, since they're still behind the payload, like in this position that Super's dropped into just back here, Probe still has no angles right here. You know, he's going to have to get like an absolute fantastic one tap, which is possible with your Widowmaker. Like, if you're cracked enough, if you had the raw mechanical skill, you can do that. But he doesn't have that much opportunity to actually do that. So this is where I'm thinking, okay, it's an excellent pick, but I think that his positioning is just a little bit too far back. I would like to see him play here a little bit more, potentially playing in this channel here, and then maybe grappling himself back up to here, because he's closer. He's still got a sightline on this point. If he's down here, he's got a sightline on all the Shock players here, and probably the backline who are down here pumping the healing into Super, who's trying to lead their way up onto this high ground. So that's probably a more advantageous position right here, but with proper lurking around, you can't be too careful, and he probably knows that. So let's just see how this fight plays out. Obviously, the healing isn't really in the hands of O2 because they're still running the Zenyatta, but he does have an ultimate. Proper now with the stick. Ideally wants to be finding a kill. Doesn't because of the bubbles, but that's the kind of stuff that can completely open you up. And now look at Super. Super, this fight is more just, in my opinion, some very, very good individual plays that wins this for San Francisco, but I do think that my point about Probe is part of the reason why they're able to so easily gain a lot of this positioning, because again, Probe's so far back and he doesn't really have the best sightlines from where he's positioned. But Super's coming over the top here. Max is on half health. His Zenyatta's forced to go out. They isolate the Brig, kill the Brig Eater with a lot of charge, and Kilo's just able to go in. There's no deterrent for this Reaper. He does get killed in the end, but that's, you know, that's 3. That's 3 if you're on the side of San Francisco. Okay, Super gets metaled down. RIP. Goodbye, Super. Now, once again, Probe has stayed in this position. Now look how much further forward this point has got. So, when we're thinking about Overwatch 2, and we're speculating that the Widowmaker, the Ashe, the Hanzo, all of these long-range hit scan heroes, or Hanzo is basically relatively projectile, you've got a lot more freedom. You have a lot less of these tanks blocking your way, and you're going to be able to get a lot more work done. Right now, Probe is showing us that that's not possible. Well, not probable, based on his positioning. But again, I think that is purely based on his positioning. I think if you're a Widowmaker and you're in a more advanced position, and you're being a little bit more aggressive with your shots, a little bit more daring, getting yourself into positions where you can work from multiple sightlines, then you're going to be able to do far more work. But right now, Probe is basically doing nothing. And in the way that O2 were trying to hold that, it was essentially saying, okay, this is a 4v5, you know? And it gives Shock the upper hand. Now, the respawns are coming in. At this point, you're just snowballing if you're San Francisco, really. I mean, they might get in fine. Okay, Heesang going on the hunt for Kilo and probably Fim. More so, but look at Proper. Proper's, you just saw him dash across his screen at the bottom here. He's already looking into that backline for his next target. He's looking for Hoy. It might be Ho1. I can't remember what his actual name is, but I'm pretty sure it's Hoy. He's looking for Hoy, okay? He's looking to put all this pressure onto Aiden to stop them from getting in position. And right now, there's 4 Shock players walking towards Max and Heesang, and I'm pretty sure it's a grab that's come out there. There it is. Transcendent goes in, massive anti-nade, and honestly, it's just really, really like good use of utility from the San Francisco Shock players to batten them back and make sure they die in that Graviton. And obviously, Kilo gets 1 with the Death Blossom. Heesang does trade out Violet, but at this point, the fight's basically over. You can only delay it so far. In my opinion, this all comes off the back of the Widowmaker decision. I think that you're picking Widowmaker and you're putting them on those sightlines are not advantageous to you. And this just gives Shock, you know, space to walk through, uncontested, no support for Max. Right. Proper's cracked. Just saying, Proper's cracked. Again, it is a 1. Ho 1. Okay, I'm going to call him Hoi. So Ho 1 still... Okay, we're going to call him Ho 1. Ho 1 dies to Proper on the respawn. Again, if you're Shock now, you have a massive advantage going in here. It's a 4 versus 5. But one thing to point out to you on this point 3 here, which is where O2 get, spoiler alert, a little bit stronger here. They start to put up a bit more of a defense and not get rolled. Probe comes off this Widowmaker and switches over to the Cassidy. Cassidy's a really good pick in this point because his range is very well suited to this part of Blizzard World. He's essentially got excellent range for most angles and can cover them. You're also now realizing that Proper is running riot in your backline. Proper is causing too much trouble now, whereby you cannot let yourself be a Widowmaker and, you know, occasionally challenge him a little bit. You have to play as if you're defending your supports. Also, it's worth mentioning that Ho 1 also flexes into the Ana here. So that's a change, obviously. You're probably looking for the Nano. One thing I was going to point out based on my last video as well is that in the Boston versus Florida scrim, we saw a lot of Echo being played. And we saw a lot of this Nano onto the Echo. Echo goes into the backline like a Winston would have in the 2021 season, you know, charges his own ultimate, getting kills on the backline, and then the Echo will then use their ult, which has been charged by them having that Nano boost and that extra damage, to change into the opposition's tank player, and then you've got 2 tanks on the field. Pincer, fuck them up, for the lack of a better term. And it was working really strong, but in this game, there is no Echo whatsoever. Now, I personally think part of that is due to map. I don't think I've seen Echo run that much on Blizzard World in the past. And that makes sense. Blizzard World is a relatively open map when you're thinking about how it is in the sky. So you don't really run Pharah there. You don't really run the Echo there all that much. You don't really have that much cover as you would have on, like, you know, Dorado's got very, very tall buildings. Like, the actual verticality of the map is much more accentuated. So it's more beneficial to run a Pharah and an Echo there because you're getting more work done. Your positioning is naturally better to play in. So that could be a reason why they're not getting run. Or it could be that these two teams actually just think it's shit, but I don't think that's the case. I think the key DPS player really for both these teams is that Tracer player. So let's take a look at this then, shall we? So this Cassidy is the main thing that's changed here, and we're going to see that O2 are probably going to be able to have like a little bit of a better fight here, playing around this corner. So this headshot from Kilo onto Heesang is absolutely crazy, and you'd think that this is going to open them up here. But Cassidy's already here. Cassidy's actually able to put in a lot more poke damage and just prevent Kilo getting into any advanced positioning, but also it's a deterrent to Proper. That anti-nade is fantastic. It forces them off. It would at any point in time, and it kind of splits the team a little bit. This is both amazing and shite. So you've TP'd into the backline as Kilo on very low health, and you're looking to pin some max here with Proper. But what happens is he gets slept up by Ho 1 and goodbye Kilo. And that's what Probe's there to do as well, obviously. I don't know how Ho 1 kills Proper there, but he does, so good. And this is a 5v3. This is a point whereby if you're O2 Blast, you're going first. You want to play. You want to push really aggressively into them because, you know, you're down a healer. If you're, well, you're down a healer now thanks to Probe, but you're down both of your DPS. And this Reaper acts a little bit like a tank. And that's going to sound crazy when I say that at first, but let me explain a little bit. Reaper's obviously 250 health base. Nano Reaper, which wasn't used in that scenario, obviously, is even more health. You're taking less damage. You know, you're outputting more damage. A Nano Reaper coming at you is almost like facing a semi-tank, and that's soaking up a lot of damage, and that allows the San Francisco Shock to buy space in that regard. It allows them to advance forward. It forces the positioning of O2 Blast backwards. The other thing about Reaper is obviously his shotguns return him a little bit of health. That's pretty powerful. So that's really good when you're running at someone. And I think what we're probably going to be seeing is a lot more of these high health pool heroes in DPS being run a little bit more because you'll be able to essentially act like a frontline. Now that's just proper being cracked. He does, like, Probe kills Kilo before that happens, but that's just proper being absolutely cracked. Okay, let's take a quick look at the ultimate economy here. So your Shock, you don't have a lot to work with here. You really only have the Nano Boost from Finn. Who do you put that onto? Well, you'll see it in a second. They're going to put it onto Kilo, and that's where my idea of, okay, they're probably trying to buy some space with that Kilo run into that front line, try and build a Death Blossom, you know. It's not perfect ult cycling, but it's, again, you're trying to buy yourself some positioning with that ultimate. On the side of O2 Blast, you have everything you need to counteract that, really. You've got a Graviton, you could go for a Grav Pulse. The High Noon is obviously there as a deterrent. I don't think, you know, High Noon is a good ultimate situationally, really, in my opinion. It's okay. All right, there it is. There's the Nano and Kilo right there. Pulse Bomb's already managed to stick super. Now, this is interesting because this is all about targeting here, and I'm gonna move us back just a tiny bit here to take a look at this, and I'm gonna run this a tiny little bit slower as well. That's subtitles. That's not running this slower. All right, let's run this a little bit slower. Right. So the one thing I want us to all look at is super here. So Max is getting burst down by super, and super is quite high charge. Okay. Obviously, when you're the only tank, you are the person that is buying space. Obviously, no tank in the game, in my opinion, is like Reinhardt, where you can put that shield up, walk towards the enemy, and you have to back off, you know? Reinhardt is excellent at buying that space, but in these comps, which are relatively similar in the way that they want to fight, with your Tracers flanking, and the other two like elements of the team pushing into each other, super being the more charged Zarya is a problem, because you've got more damage. You're going to be doing more work. Holy crap, you don't want him to touch the backline, otherwise you're going to have problems. Your backline's going to die, you basically lose the fight. So Max here commits to Grav onto Super after they get some damage off him with the break, and they melt the ever-loving crap out of him. And that, in my opinion, is a really worthwhile use of an ultimate, because you can't advance and buy that positioning without your front line. Unless, and we'll see if they can do it with the theory that I suggested earlier. They identify Super as the key target and they kill him. Now here we go. Kilo. Nanoed. Obviously, because of the Grav, he's been slowed down. The effect of the Nano has basically been reduced by like half, 75%, because he hasn't had time to move forward with it. And he doesn't have his other tank with him. But you're a Charged Reaper. You're pushing right forward. He's already got Max down to nothing. If he has his other tank here, and maybe a proper in the back line, okay, if it weren't for, you know, an excellent Graviton, then this team's in trouble. You know, they even with Super Dead, they have bought space here. You know, they've bought a good, like, you know, half the distance towards the payload here. It's, in my opinion, an excellent ultimate. Whip Shot comes out, knocks him back. He's already on low health. He's probably going to have to fade away at this point. Let's put this back to normal speed. But I understand the way that they're trying to make that work, San Francisco, and I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea either. I still think that O2 had the tools to counteract it, but it's an interesting play. It's interesting. And it's the reason why I wanted to go through this so much is because you see all of these really interesting concepts being used. Even if it's not Overwatch 2, you see all of these interesting concepts of the 5v5 spacing and how you have to accommodate for that lack of tank, you know, being executed here. And I think it's wonderful. I think it's really interesting. Proper. Where is it? Where is it? You can't see it on the screen, but you can see it in the kill feed. Proper dipping Heesang again. Doing it all game. He's a nutcase. And again, there's no pressure onto the support line, which is probably why what happens here. So, Violet popping the rally, doing it to keep his team alive really here. You're not really getting any value to push because, as you can see, Super's only just come back from spawn. The rally from Aiden is popped out in response to this as well. And you basically have all of the team bar Heesang. Now, the fact that Heesang was dead is really useful here, and the fact that Violet pops the rally is also excellent because there is very little pressure on this backline. They can move back, they can consolidate resources into Kilo to keep them alive, you know? They don't have to worry about what's behind them, they just have to disengage and worry about what's in front of them, and that means they're basically able to get away with this scot-free to an extent, but it's a really good sleep from Super. Massive anti, and you can see that the anti's been called and Max really pushes in. Interesting again. Me trying to remember most of this game is difficult. even though I watched it not too long ago. Anyway, let's see what happens at the end here. I don't think I've made any more notes on this half, so I can only assume that it finishes pretty soon. Okay, yeah, good grab from Super. Yeah, he dies here, but they get max, which is good. Okay, yeah, this was a note I made and I forgot to talk about. Hold on. This is how they win this goddamn game. Okay, I'm going to slow this down as well, and I'm going to just try and show you what happens here. It's just a piece of individual mechanic greatness, but it's nuts. Okay, so I talk about how these traces are blimmin' important, right? I keep talking about how, like, if you're not putting pressure on their backline is putting pressure on you, which is the whole thing about these supports, and it's why Tracer is so goddamn valuable, you know? Well, Heesang is trying to put pressure on their backline, and Violet has already got him down to this much health. He's here, he's been pushing into Heesang. He's diffed him, and Heesang's got an absolute minuscule amount of his health left, and then the whip shot comes in. Boom. Violet on his own is basically disengaged Heesang, and that means no more pressure on the backline. Him and Finn can basically roll free unless there's a weird flank coming out from the McCree, and that's, in my opinion, is an absolute fight winner. Like, that's massive from Violet, honestly. And that's why Brigitte is invaluable in these compositions where Tracer is so strong. It's a textbook example, okay? Pulse bomb onto, God, is it that probe that just died there? And then Proper just, yeah, but look, Proper is absolutely nuts when Proper is just given spaces and resources to just thrive. He is lethal. He is absolutely lethal in these scenarios. So there's not really any changes from O2 Blast. They come back out here. They don't have any ults to work with. Kilo and Finn both have ultimates. And what you see here is a TP into the backline. There's the nano boost onto Reaper, and he can just walk at you. Look how much health he's lost. He gets a nade in, yes, but he's just killed 2 players, done a bucket ton of damage onto Aiden, and that's the round. Therein be the round. So already, what have we seen from this round? Simulating tank properties with your DPS in the Reaper play. Widowmaker. Viable? Yes. Not very good in my opinion from Probe. Didn't really work it right. Brigitte is instrumental in keeping off Tracers. And Tracer is instrumental in buying space. Not buying space, what's the word? In pressuring the backline, you know, and denying space almost. Like, this is the thing, the knock-on effect from having this Tracer, just because Tracer can do everything, is crazy. And I think the same thing when I look at D.Va as well, because D.Va can do everything. So, difficult things happening here. Oh, yeah, other thing. Tank. No tank? No tank, no space buy. No tank, don't push forward. Not fantastic. Okay, Ray is correct. I am not reading my chat very much, but I am going to answer this question because I think it's important at this point. Sorry, Josh. Sorry, Brent. I need to skip on by very briefly. So, why is Brigitte indispensable since they have no stun? Is it just immediately attacked? So, yes, I agree with that, right? Brigitte, because they don't have that stun, there is an element of nerf there. They're not going to be able to stun up your Tracer, have someone else on your team turn around and you can one-bang them, you know? That's not really going to happen anymore. I mean, Ana could turn around with a sleep, but you know how notoriously difficult it is to sleep dart a Tracer. It's not easy. But what Brigitte still offers you is they're like, well, they are essentially a mini Reinhardt. If you're a Tracer and you're getting up to a Reinhardt's face and you're trying to shoot them, that Reinhardt is just going to swing around with that hammer, and they have like an area where that melee is really warding them off, right? Now, the Tracer's stun, still, while it doesn't stun, sorry, the shield bash, it doesn't stun, but it does do damage. So that damage is already a deterrent to the Tracer. And then also the whip shot. The whip shot's obviously forcing them back as well. And all of this is doing quite a relative amount of damage. If you've ever seen like a Brigitte versus a Tracer matchup, like if you hit a shield bash and a whip shot, you know, they're nearly dead, you know, that forces their recall out and they've got to bugger off, you know, or if they haven't, or if they've not got recall already, then that forces them to back away for a little bit, you know. It's still a major deterrent, the Brigitte, in my opinion. And to be fair, that's a really good question, because you're going to see that here anyway, because what you can see now, San Francisco don't have a Brigitte and they're defending. What else do they have? A Widowmaker. What did I just say about Widowmaker? Again, I don't want to sit here and say that Widowmaker is going to be bad in Overwatch 2, because I don't think they are at all. And you will see elements of Widow being good in this game here. But depending on where you're setting up, especially on Blizzard World, I don't think this Widowmaker is like the perfect pick. I think that you can maybe go for like a Hanzo or an Ashe, and you can play with that sort of style as well that's still able to be a little bit more peely, or maybe to have a little bit more of a higher DPS output, because Widowmaker is completely dependent on getting those headshots, you know, and taking someone out of the game like that. But the major thing here is obviously no Brigitte. Violet goes over onto the Zenyatta, probably to propel Proper into doing more damage and actually getting more picks off. And Super goes on to his good old faithful Reinhardt. Okay. Reinhardt. I'll let you guys see for yourself, but Reinhardt. On the other side, Probe is also running this Widowmaker, and they are going to continue to run the Zarya. Basically, same composition as last time. Probe is on a different hit scan. Cool. All right. Probe goes for the one tap, and he changes into the McCree. Okay, cool. Makes sense. Same composition as you actually got a big hold with last time. Makes sense for you to run this. Okay. Hee-Sang. Hee-Sang's going on these flank duels against Proper, okay? You do have to get past Proper first. Proper's basically doing a little bit of work to peel here. But Hee-Sang is looking to get into your backline, just like Proper was in this point when Shock were attacking. Your Max, you can't really approach this Reinhardt too much. They've got too much health, they've got big shield, and who's just died in the backline? It's Finn! Why's Finn died in the backline? Because Violet isn't on Brigitte. There is so much less protection when you don't have an off-tank peeling for your Ana, and when there's no Brigitte there to keep them alive either. Your resources are simply not there, and Reinhardt isn't the kind of tank that can do both. Like, I don't think any tank can do both at the same time, because you cannot be in two places at once. But if you're a diva, at least you can turn around with a defense matrix and do something, you know? If you're a Zarya, you can turn around a bubble. That's fine if you get the call out and you're quick enough. But this is a problem on this point. And what does that mean? Let's be real. When has a Zenyatta ever been able to heal up a Reinhardt in quick succession? Look, Super just gets melted. Super's just gone. I have to say, Proper's still nuts, because look, Proper's still absolutely... He tracer diffs Hee-Sang there, but it was still enough. At the end of the day, that was still enough for O2 to push through, because they just have no presence on the point now. It's gone. It's completely gone there. They step on that point, they're going to get absolutely melted down. So, that was bad. Your Reinhardt's trying to play. Let's see if I can just turn the camera a little bit. Okay. Your Reinhardt's looking to play over here, right? In that first bit. But because you lose Finn, you die. Now, this is why Super's presumably still staying on Reinhardt here, is because this is still a good zone to be playing the Reinhardt, okay? If you want to move the payload through this choke, you still have to get past Super. So, it's a good pick, in my opinion. No, there's lots of tight areas where you're not really able to work around the back as much. So, for O2 to find a way around the back and contest this Reinhardt isn't going to be as easy, in my opinion. But this is also subject to Kilo actually getting value on this Widowmaker. So, look, that's a blimmin' brilliant whip shot, honestly. Like, Super almost, he's probably going to get the kill on Max there, but the whip shot from Aiden just cucks him. It stops him from doing it. It's brilliant, honestly. And that's was that? No, it's just 100% charged Zarya, goes into the backline, has a go. Really nice return here, as you can see. Finn has used a nano boost. Proper's popped he has Pulse Bomb online, sorry, but Super's able to just jump on them with a bucket ton of damage. They're right next to him because it's, you know, it's close quarters at this point through that choke, and Super's able to mop them up. So Reinhardt's fine in this choke. That's the first thing you take away from it. You're like, oh, okay, Reinhardt's fine in this choke. Is Reinhardt going to be fine anywhere else on this map? Not really. Not really. Okay. Killer pops in for sight. You know what's happening here. Hee-Sang's still trying to get into the back line, but he's getting soaked up a little bit. There's just a lot of damage coming out. This ends up being a really nice little hold from the shot, because look, Proper has just diffed Hee-Sang again. That in itself is just good. It's A, good peel from Proper, and B, it's keeping Finn safe. This just keeps Finn safe. It keeps Violet safe from getting absolutely melted and having the Tracer go for a flank battle. It's vital, actually, to Shock having this hold here. Probe's gone over to the 76 to try and get something done, you know, but right now Shocker in a really, really powerful position. And this is where this Reinhardt thrives, right here. Okay, Aiden popping Rally. Super has Shatter. Lays it down around the corner and gets both the supports. Really, really good. So, okay, let's just talk about Shatter for a minute here. Bren and Sideshow say it in the actual cast, and this is where I've got this from, but it's a really good point from Bren that, you know, a two-man Shatter may not be a lot in Overwatch 1. In Overwatch 2, that's what? That's 40% of the team. Especially if you get them both the backline, they're gone. They're out of it. So, really good. Just super being super. Okay. Finn catching Heesang. Super does die there. No, he doesn't. Sorry, that's just the thing flipping around. Sorry. Violet's the only one that dies here, but, you know, you're getting big kills if you're San Francisco, and you're basically fine. That's an excellent team fight win, and they even invested the Graviton, and this time Max goes into the Diva, and Probe goes into the Reaper. Okay, so immediately what does this tell us? This tells us that O2 need more presence on the front line, you know, and more of a deterrent to Reinhardt. Okay, good. Makes sense. Perfect. Max going into the Widowmaker is also interesting because this, and you're going to see this in a minute, because Diva's so quick and because you're still playing an area with a relative amount of high ground, Reinhardt doesn't get as much value against this Diva if they stay out the way. There's less point pressure, but Reinhardt's not getting as much value. And especially if you've still got Heesang ducking and weaving around the back, you know, if you've got a Reaper flirting with the idea of going on a flank, and if you've got Max sort of like tugging, you know, pulling Super's attention in the other direction, you're going to start to see this Shock team just get pulled apart a little bit because they're now fighting a battle on all fronts. I mean, obviously, if you wanted to do this better, you probably put this into like a Sombra or an Echo or something like that. But Reaper's still fine because you want the frontline pressure, and it's more of a deterrent to Super. Let's carry on. Proper on the flank. Kilo. So I've been ragging on Widowmaker. I wouldn't personally play Widowmaker here in this choke, but Kilo, this is why he's professional, because he's just able to find those headshots, you know, as they're still in spawn, because he knows where they're gonna be. He's able to just pop up, and there, I guarantee you there, he's looking for the Brig, because the Brig has darted across just in his sightline that we just saw, but instead he pops up, he doesn't see the Brig, he's like, oh, hey, Probe, bam, one bang, gone, completely and utterly demolished, and you gotta love it. You simply have to love it if you're a Shock fan. Right. Let's have a look and see how we go here. Kilo asleep? Okay, so that's how he dies. I didn't notice that one before. Okay. Kilo gets slept by like Ho1 at one point, and then gets just taken out by Probe, sorry. So that's how Kilo dies. Right. So in the last game, sorry, in the flip version of this, when O2 were attacking, Kilo isn't getting, sorry, not Kilo, Probe isn't getting any value on his Widowmaker because he sat too far back. Notice that Kilo is A, further forward, you know, to fight like in this choke and put a lot of pressure on. And B, he's actually hitting his headshots and getting value. Now he's dead. He's not getting value. That's already the start of a problem for the San Francisco Shock, but you'd think with two ultimates they should be okay. But let's see what happens. But it's the start of a problem here. Super's on the high ground, but there's really no one with him. He's just holding this high ground on his own, but it just, you know, stops everyone from contesting a lot. This is a really good pulse bomb here. Takes out Violet. There's no Transcendence. So the Nano Boost gets invested into Super, thinking, okay, he's a deterrent. He can force them back. But look what's happening here. Probe's just like moved into the back line. Okay, so he's here. The back of his team is here. Heesang's here. Finn's in a corner here. Super can't peel for that. Violet's dead and on the way back. What do you do? What do you do at this point? Like, the Shock have now just been pulled apart, you know, their resources are moving in many, many different directions. And all that's going to happen is they're going to be too far away. Like, Aiden's able to just come around the back and capitalize on Finn, and then Super dives in and he dies. Now, as a Nano on Heesang, and he's going to go and do a load of work, or try to at the very least. Kilo gets a consolation kill, but what do? You simply don't do much. Also, hello chat, I'm doing big old YouTube video stuff at the moment, so I apologize if I don't respond to anyone. We're in that kind of mood today, but I appreciate you all being here very, very much. I'll talk to you after it. Okay, cool. So that's O2 basically breaking their way through this choke. And now Super has a shatter, yes, but you're not playing in this choke anymore. You know, there is a lot more space for Heesang to get behind you. Max is already behind you, you know? And I know that Discord Orb is good and it's good for you to aggress onto it, but what are you actually going to get done? Kilo gets diffed by Probe, which is, you know, one of the first times that Probe does that naturally. Violet dies? How does Violet die? How does Violet die there? I think this is, look, okay, Max goes into the backline and just looks for him. And I think, okay, no, that's Finn. Finn's trying to keep him alive as as Max just dives onto him, you know? And that's, yeah, look at that. Max has just dived both the backline and there's no ability from Super to be able to peel for that. And because, this is another thing, because Violet's still playing Zenyatta, he's just susceptible to that. There is no Brigitte on the side of San Francisco and they just cannot do anything about that. He kills Proper as well. Max goes on an absolute tear here, you know? Like, that's got to be the end of Kilo as well. No, he changed it out. Okay. But that's a win. That's a sheer fire team fight win for a 2 Blast based on that hero choice. And again, okay, cool. Big Trance coming in. He sang again. And I know I've been talking about Proper. I know I've been saying that Proper is an absolute goat. He is goated with the sauce on this Tracer. But He sang finds Finn again. And that's just going to open them up even more. Once this Transcendence goes, there is no healing left. And where's Super? Here he is. Okay. He's there. And now he's in the back line, and now he's way separated from the team, and that is basically that. Slept up, left there, everyone goes after Proper, forcing them back, points already done, Probe's killed Violet, Probe's killed Finn again, who's just come out of spawn, and Super realizes he has to go over to Zarya. There we go. Cool. Much better. I'm very surprised that in this game, Violet still stays on the Zenyatta role on defense. I mean, I know it's his best hero. I know he likes it, but like, other than that hold in the choke from Shock, they're getting torn apart by Heesang. He's getting so much more value because there is quite literally no support for their supports. There's no support for the Shock supports. That's what I'm trying to say there. That probably didn't come across the correct way. Anyway, Proper's now diving in the back line. Kilo has gone back into Reaper. Again, it's a pretty good point for Kilo. There's a lot of high ground here. He can TP quite a lot, you know? In a good position here. Heesang, he's got Max with him. He's just doing work. And also, Probe has gone into this Hanzo. So he's still got this poke damage. Kilo, if you want to get value and you're the Shock, okay, and you're not Tracer, you've got to get blimmin' close to Probe to be able to take him out, you know? He's got like the joy that is just being able to hold off and pump damage him. He can also access high ground whenever he wants. So this is an excellent pick for this part of the map, you know? And again, no extra tank, a little bit more space around the back line. This is going to probably cause quite a lot of trouble for a 2 Blast. This is the only place where I would say, okay, the Zenyatta is relatively good here because you can still pressure Probe, especially if you're as mechanically gifted as Violet is on the Zen. Okay, so let's just see how this plays out. I like how I've written Ryan is sad for this point. Simply Ryan sad. Let's see what happens in the next bit. Flipping it over. Poking and prodding from Proper. Looking to find a pick. What a stick. Oh, I told you he sounds good. Okay, here we go again. Right, Nano Reaper. Where's your tank? He's out of position. You should be able to just get into the back line, push, and kill here. You have more health. You have more damage. You should be killing, you know, one, if not both of these guys. But you can't, because all that happens here is that the Brigitte has a whip shot. They have a self-defense mechanism. They can just say, bugger off, Reaper. And Hanzo, obviously the dash is good for him to get out of the way as well. But if you just keep backing off this Reaper, you're eventually going to kill him. You know, you've got range here. So it's just win. There's a win. Kilo doesn't get any value from that, and he doesn't buy any space back for San Francisco because he dies, and it's just a waste of an ultimate. Violet then dies as well to Heesang. You know, Finn getting the murder. He murdered as well. And what you see here for the end part is that Finn is switching over to this Brigitte, just trying to to finally stop Heesang from running riot on the Shock's backline, but oh wait, no, it was the Baptiste switch. Well, either way, I prefer the Baptiste to the Ana at this current point in time, but like Immortality Field is going to get burst down as well. You know, you're only as good at protecting yourself as you are as someone else, and that's basically the fight over. There's enough pressure out there from O2. There's only staggering spawns coming in from Shock, and it's pretty good. But in my opinion, all of that quite literally comes from two things. It comes from the Super Reinhardt choice, because while it was great in that choke, it was not good for the rest of the map. Not good at all. And probably more importantly, especially Super's Reinhardt is fine up until, you know, they got through that choke. You know, maybe a swap early would have been fine. But it's Violet staying on that Zenyatta that really, really holds back the Shock from being able to make an actual defense, or maybe even 3-2 them, you know, make a hold somewhere in that first round. Because Heesang, and you saw it visibly, he has so much more impact when there is nothing in his way to contest him. So, you know, good stuff from Shock, good stuff from O2 Blast, they capitalize on it, and Shock surely learn about this for the rest of the season. But then we don't know how those heroes are going to be balanced. Maybe we're completely wrong, but in this match anyway, we definitely know that the Brigitte has impact. So, Super's going back over onto the Zarya, and Kilo is a bit cracked and kills the Brigitte, which means that Proper is going to have a wonderful, wonderful time. Proper's going to just be able to carry on going as he wants. It's a great anti-nade. Max has to be the one that's the furthest forward in order to make any space at all for O2, and he can't do that if he's antied. He can't really do that without Aiden, because there's very little support coming in his way. You know, he doesn't have very much healing, so that's not good. Probe stays on this McCree just to try and make sure that there's a little bit of pressure on Proper. Now, here's what's happening here. A little bit further back. I want the overhead. Okay. Therein lies Proper. Okay? Proper, I'm pretty sure, is having a duel with Heesang somewhere around here at this current point in time. He is in this backline. He is ready to go absolutely hard onto Probe, onto Aiden, onto Hoy. And that's good. You know, that's exactly what you want your tracer player to be doing. But similarly, as I've already said, Heesang needs to be in the backline here. He needs to be putting pressure on Shock's backline so that their resources aren't going into their front line, so that they're not going to Super. And if I remember correctly, let's see what happens here. Okay. There's Proper. Proper hasn't found a pick yet, but he's there. He's messing around. He's making it difficult for Probe to actually be able to focus any damage onto O2 Blast. No, he is O2 Blast. Onto the San Francisco Shock. And so Proper's doing his job great, even though he hasn't even found a pick here yet, you know? Massive anti-nade onto Violet, though, there. So, you know, Shock may maybe find it a little bit more difficult, but Proper's in the backline. Kills Heesang. Heesang isn't able now to be in the backline of Shock anymore. The Shock backline, even though Violet's anti, they don't have to turn around. They don't have to worry about anything. There's not going to be anything up their ass unless it's a complete and utter surprise, you know, like a surprise flanking McCree. And that's not going to happen. So at that point, you invest all your resources. Super's just able to hold all of that positioning, and the picks start coming out, and O2 Blast, unfortunately, don't cap up any progress. They're not able to find any picks. And that's, in my opinion, how vital this tracer is. It's just incredibly, incredibly vital. It's so important. Okay, now I wish we'd seen this for the majority of the game, but this is nuts, right? Look at Shock's composition. So Probe goes over onto the Hanzo, trying to mirror the effect that Kilo just had. Get an early pick. Makes sense. In my opinion, that's a surefire pick for Blizzard World. I think that you can get a lot more value out of it. I think you're a lot more mobile than, well, not a lot more than Widowmaker, but you're not worried about the one-tap headshot potential all the time. With Hanzo, you're still going to get fat damage, and you've got the one-tap headshot potential. So it's a good pick. It's a great pick. But look at Shock. Super Roadhog. And then they run Violet on the Brig, and they run Finn on the Lucio. Now, I'm not saying that this negates all the impact that Heesang can have, but this already makes it so difficult for Heesang to be able to have like a distinct impact with one pick anymore. They learn their lesson from the fact that Heesang run riot on the two flex supports last time. Super Roadhog, we know it's good. This is an interesting pick. I'm not entirely sure how this works dynamically in Overwatch 2 and 5v5, but we're going to see a little smuttering of it right here. We're going to see just a smattering of what it could mean, and that's with the hooks. So no longer as a Roadhog are you dependent on getting a hook onto a support and getting them out of the game. This is good because you pull that main tank out of position. Okay, this spoiler alert doesn't lead to a kill here, but pulling Max out of position makes so much space between that front line and the back line, okay? That back line either have to push him with them, which, you know, is probably not a good idea. There's a massive space vacuum behind them right there, you know, that the shock players are going to move into, you know? Or they have to back the ever-loving crap off. Now, they all back off here, but look how much space is bought just from that damage alone as well. And Super's able to go around the corner here and start getting a little bit more work done. And Heesang is just unable to get any impact. This is another really interesting point in the game because Heesang's still alive. No, he's not. He's dead, sorry. Heesang is dead. So there's no pressure going on to the back line of the San Francisco Shock. And Max, where he should be playing here, is here. And you saw he was on the front line literally just 2 seconds ago. But why is he here? Because just in the background, just like underneath where my mouse is, sort of like adjacent to where Hoy is, that's where a sleeping proper is. And sleeping proper needs Hoy and Max to both burst him down and kill him. So proper's dead. They trade. There it is up in the top right hand corner of your screen. Proper's dead. Surely both your traces are gone. This is a fair fight. Nope, because because Max isn't on this front line here. He's come back to do that job. Fair enough. Makes sense. If Heesang was still alive, he'd probably be the one to do it. But Max is in a position where he can come and help. But that position shouldn't be where he is. He should be up here. He should be up here because there's a complete power vacuum here from a tank. Super can just walk onto point. And now this just becomes a really scrappy fight, which favors the Roadhog, which favors Violet being in these situations as well. You know, Proper's dead, but what a hook as well. Hook just pulls. Okay, this time you're pulling Max back into position, but it's not like filling that power vacuum, like stopping Hog from walking onto point, is it? He's already there, and you've just taken half your damage, and you don't have any follow-up if you're O2 Blast, and that's just going to see the end of him, you know? And that's basically that, you know? Hoy can try, Heesang can try, but that's Shock basically taking the win on that one. So let's go back over to here real quick. Oh, that's so loud. So, what did we learn? What did this tell us? Because obviously we know that this is not going to be the final build of the game. We know that there's going to be a lot of balance changes for Overwatch 2 that are probably going to make a lot of what I've said null and void potentially. You know, there's probably going to be other heroes cropping up here. But I think there's a couple of fundamentals, especially in terms of space and in terms of what this tank difference of having 5v5, not 6v6, means for the game again. And it just sort of bolsters the knowledge that we got from that earlier leaked scrim from Boston and Florida. The first thing is that unless Tracer is nerfed, they're probably going to be pivotal and they're probably going to be a mainstay. Tracer can do so much work on their own, and because this game is becoming far more first-person shooter oriented, whereby actually the mechanical skill of your players is going to have a higher impact, good Tracer players like Kevster, like Proper, like Prophet, are going to be able to run riot on backlines. And it's going to be very scary. I wouldn't be surprised to see London do really well this season because Shax is a really good Tracer. And if he could turn up the volume again, or like turn up his level, then you're going to see some really good impact from them. Highly likely. Again, I already tackled the Echo point, the fact that there was no Echo this time. Interesting. I think that was a map-dependent choice, but interesting. The Reaper Nano strat. I think that the Reaper Nano strat shows an idea at the very least of teams trying to fill almost the vacuum of not having that second tank. You're trying to use a DPS hero with a large health pool, with, you know, extra abilities funneled onto them, extra buffs like a nano boost, you know, like the Hellfire shotguns returning to Mevo health, to try and tank some of that damage on the front line and buy space. A lot of what's happened in this game here has obviously been the FPS elements where you're being just super cracked and getting lots of value, but a lot of it's down to just buying space. That's what you want to do, okay? You want to be further forward. You want to go first. That's vitally important, you know, especially if you're attacking and you're trying to capture a point. You want to force that team off that point. You're trying to buy space. You want to try and get yourself onto that payload. You got to push that team behind it. You got to buy that space back. And that's a viable method of doing it, I think, in theory. Whether that'll work or not, I'm not sure. Okay. Brigitte. Brigitte may get changed. I don't know if this will stay. But Brigitte is absolutely critical to the anti-tracer gameplay. We saw that when Probe went onto the McCree, it had somewhat of an impact. It did like help. It helped a little bit to stop proper running riot. But Heesang had more of an impact in that game overall when there was no Brigitte on the field. O2 Blast were able to just run into that backline and do dirty things, aside from when they were in that choke where Reinhardt was dominant and Reinhardt was the main space taker. So, well, deterrent, sorry, not space taker as well, but a deterrent to the enemy tracer. So, yeah, I think if Trace is concerned, Brigitte is going to be concerned. So that's fundamental. That's relatively important. I've written in large capital letters here that Reinhardt is going to struggle. I think that unless Reinhardt gets some very big changes, I don't want to see Reinhardt get changed around too much, though. I like what the hero is and what it stands for. You don't want to see his, his charge making him take off, into the air or something like that, or being stupidly fast, or him having like 5 of them. But in his current state, both in this patch and from the leaks that I've heard in, well, I say leaks, it was actually stated in the developer update last Thursday that Reinhardt was struggling a little. And I think that's probably going to continue forward unless something changes, because, yeah, he really suffers when when he loses a support. He's not mobile enough to do anything to help his support, and while he is still the best space-taking tank in the game to an aspect where he can just hold up a shield and walk forward, it's almost not good enough on a lot of those maps. So he's going to be very map dependent, a little bit like he was this season for some of it, but yeah, we'll see how he goes. But then I also think that Reinhardt in that situation was being played with the Zen Ana. He wasn't even being given a Lucio, to work with. So there was no Mei either there to like isolate targets. So yeah, we'll see. But that's still a warning sign for me. What else have I written? I've got 2 more points here. So I've touched on that with Reinhardt, but a tank has 2 jobs. Because there is no other tank on your team, you have to hold that front line. You are that power there, If you abdicate that space, you leave a power vacuum, and the enemy team's tank can walk into it if there isn't enough DPS on him, which for the most part probably won't be, especially if the rest of his team is behind him anyway. So you have to decide when you're a tank to either hold that front line, which in my opinion is the most important thing, or you've got to be peeling. And you can't be in 2 places at once. You can't do both. So that's a fundamentally difficult thing for tanks. And in my opinion, from what I've seen in these 2 5v5 scrims, or at least on the workshop build, is that the best tanks at the launch of the Overwatch League are probably going to be the ones that are more versatile and have more of a chance of doing both. No one can do both, but some people can get closer to that better than others. D.Va. D.Va can obviously do quite a lot because they're much more mobile, and that defense matrix has a lot of range on it, so you can do stuff. Zarya is a good pick too because of the extra bubble. You're able to actually swing around, bubble your support, give a little bit of time for your other support to come in, or maybe a tracer to come back round and peel, and you go back to holding that front line. But a tank has to hold that front line lest you sacrifice space to a power vacuum. And that's been fine in the past sometimes. There've been dive comps that will back off, allow people to take that space, and you go back in, you go first, you use your utility to clear them out, to flush them out, to get those picks. But in what we saw today, that tank had to be on that front line, and they had to be holding that space, otherwise it was going to get taken away from them. And that is all he wrote from the notes on the game. I really enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed watching that game. I cannot wait to see any Overwatch 2 footage now. It's out in the wild. We know it's there. I cannot wait to be able to like pick that apart, analyze it, cast it, host it. I want to get my teeth into it. You know, I'm praying that I get put into the beta so I can actually, you know, go in, do a couple of matches, you know, watch a couple, you know, and like you know, maybe like put the information out there. But for the time being, that's all we have at the moment. So that's going to be the end of this one. That's going to be the end of this one. We're back here tomorrow doing some stuff. We're either going to be playing Overwatch or Valorant, and yeah, and remember on Thursday, if you guys are enjoying this Overwatch League stuff, on Thursday we're going to be doing more of the Owl Countdown, which is the 3 teams this week. Who were the 3 teams this week? We said it on Thursday. Who the blimmin' heck were they? Oh no. I think it was Houston, Shock, and London. Houston, Shock, and London? Shanghai, London, and Houston. Okay, so it's Shanghai, London, and Houston this week. So there we go. Those are the ones. So if you want to see that, we'll do that. But that's it. That's all we've got time for today. So yeah, catch you guys in the next video and all that. Have a nice day whenever you're watching this. Speak to you soon.